I want to know how certain coaches comport themselves in practice. Now, you've given us already earlier, you've talked about Kyle Shanahan, how he works with Trey Lance. But aside from that, during practice, what does Kyle do? Are you aware of him?
No,
Is he? You're not. Tell me
no,
what he's like.
it's weird. Like it's like this team doesn't have a head coach. Is the way I would look at it. Because Harbaugh is the head coach, is like the platonic ideal of a head coach. I guess in my head, he was so larger than life. You always knew where he was. He wanted you to know where he was. He had a whistle. He participated. He yelled. He'd kick people out. If there was a fight, he'd get in there. That's just what I think of. I mean, Kyle just acts like he has changed. Not at all. He was an offensive coordinator. Now he's a head coach, but he's just going to be himself. And so he's quiet. He talks to John Lynch. People come to him. He's a cool guy. He's down to earth, and he's talking on his walkie-talkie to call plays into Trey Lance. He's doing a lot of quiet talking to his quarterback during practice. I mean, when he's not with the quarterback coach.
Does he have a whistle?
No whistle. No, he's very
no
quiet.
Whistle?
I never hear his voice. Only time I hear him is if the Niners like go off, have a false start on offense, and he calls him back to the huddle. He might curse, but really, you never hear him. He's very low key.
Maybe the beat writer should get him a whistle.
He needs a whistle. Harbaugh wore cleats. He was out of his mind. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. We really wanted to be part of the action.
You know, Iggy, when I was a kid, I had a whistle and a yo-yo.
Yo-yos were fun. Could you make it sleep? Could you make it sleep? Could you walk
maybe he need? I could barely make it sleep. What I'm saying is maybe Kyle needs a whistle and a yo-yo.
We should get him a whistle and a yo-yo.
Your whistle and a yo-yo. Like okay, I want to compare that to Bill Walsh because and George Seifert. Bill Walsh, he was yelling, and he didn't yell at the players. He yelled at the coaches. He would embarrass coaches in front of coach and he would curse. He would curse all the time. I'm not going to do it. Is that coaching? Is that the best you can do? And he would. And the
if Jimmy Ward can curse on my channel, I'm going to let you curse too, but no one else.
No, I don't want to do it.
Okay.
But in any event, he would embarrass the coaches. And by the way, the coaches didn't like it. Some of them tell me like, "What the hell was that?
Why are you showing me up?"
Yeah, showing me up. And his alleged theory was the players would feel responsible that he showed up to coach and they would try harder. Also, Seifert used to yell. You always think of him. One time, I think I told you, they let us out early, like dogs from a pen. They let us out early one day during the season to practice. I guess McKittrick didn't get his players over there fast enough. Well, as I'm walking out, I hear George Seifert yelling at Bob McKittrick, a former Marine. Where the hell are your players? Get them over here. Get your blank players over here. And I remember looking at McKittrick's face. He didn't show anything. He just walked up with his players, but he was probably thinking, I could break you like a stick. You know what I mean? But I saw that happen. And the point is, so Kyle, I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's not what I'm used to.
I think this is a little generational, though. Like, Harbaugh would yell, and I think what happened was the Niners felt that the younger players were turned off a little bit by how he was like a relic of the 80s, and the Generation Z kids, the kids younger than me, are sensitive. We're sensitive, and we don't like to be yelled at. We don't like to be told that we're not good. We don't respond to that kind of coaching, and the new style is positive reinforcement. Robert Saleh, you're doing great. I believe you. I love you. We're family. I'm just trying to make you better. It all comes from a place of love and understanding. And the players like that. And that's D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans is very much like Robert Saleh.
Tell me about his demeanor, D'Amico Ryans.
He's like the same size as Robert Saleh. Big linebacker type guy that looks intimidating, but is smiling. He's laughing. He's constantly praising, constantly celebrating with the players like he's one of them, and that really plays well with today's athlete. I never saw a coach get players to play harder for him than Robert Saleh.
Well, let me ask you about Ryans.
Yes.
During practice in these last few days, can you hear him?
No.
He's quiet too.
It's like the team doesn't have a head coach, and I know they do, but just from what there is not one big voice at practice. There is no voice.
Interesting.
Kyle's talking quietly on a walkie-talkie, and D'Amico Ryans, I don't know, maybe Robert Saleh, there are no yellers. There's one yeller and screamer on the team, the D-line coach. And it's almost like a caricature. He's just yelling. Like I was like, oh, there he goes again. That wasn't a word, actually.
Now, where does Ryan stand?
Interesting. He makes the rounds among the defense. He's the former linebacker coach, and I see him kind of gravitating to the linebackers, but he needs to hang back and watch the whole thing. That's what Saleh did. So he's learning, but he gravitates to, I want to teach, I want to participate, which is fine. He was a very good linebacker coach. He developed Fred Warner, but now he's a D coordinator. He needs to remove himself.
Okay, I got another question. In your reports, you sometimes say a running back ran up the middle and he ran for 15 yards or 20 yards. Iggy, how do you know? I mean, they don't tackle, so how do you know how many yards he got?
I don't. I'm doing the best I can, and what I do is when he gets touched. My estimation of when he gets touched. But that's not football. I mean, you see people break tackles all the time. I'm just trying to give as much detail as possible, and that's kind of a little bit of a embellished detail. It's a guess. It's a guess. But I think people would appreciate a guess as long as they understand that's what it is.
So sometimes they break through and don't get touched for a while.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes.
My next question, when there's a run play, do the O-line and D-line actually hit each other?
The O-line and D-line actually hit each other every play. It really does look a lot like football, but they do their best to make sure no one falls down at any point, and they do not tackle or hit the person that gets the ball.
But the lines actually engage.
They try the defensive linemen try their best to beat the offensive linemen, and the offensive linemen try their best to block them. But when a D-line does come through, he tries his best to not touch the freaking quarterback. Because if he does touch the quarterback, he'll probably get cut. I've seen Samson Ebukam get around Trent Williams and then dive on the ground. Like, okay, I won, but I'm really not trying to touch Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, whoever. The coaches saw I did my job, and now I need to stop. It's practice.
Iggy, I love that.
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
Yeah. And the quarterbacks actually have a different colored jersey. So it's not like they're reminding players, hey, it's like it's a visual reminder. You don't even have to think, man. If you see black, don't touch it.
The players wear red, but the quarterbacks wear black.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it means this is a player you don't touch.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Are there any other little, I mean, I love these details, again, because the people we're talking to aren't there. Mm-hmm. Are there any other little details that are interesting that maybe you could share with us? And you don't have to.
Okay, I just in general, the thing that I'm most in awe about during these practices is when the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman hit each other. You can't hear it on television really, but in person, they're so much bigger than you. They're so close. It sounds so violent. It's like you're on the beach watching like mammoth walruses go head to head. It's like you can't take your eyes off of it. Football's very exciting, but combat is always the most exciting thing to watch. It's a reason why, like, if there's a pickup basketball game on one corner and a fight on the other, you're going to watch the fight every time, Yeah. And so, like, the team will break up and you'll have wide receivers against corners, and that's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool, And then you'll have O-line and D-line going face-to-face, head-to-head. It's like, yeah, I'm watching that. So it's like it's a human reaction thing. It just steals your attention, and it's fascinating. And it really reminds you how vicious and violent the sport is.
I love it. It's really interesting. I'll tell you one other thing that's so silly that I used to notice that, and this is nothing like what you're talking about. They have these big water jugs, at least they did when I was there, with these hoses that come out.
Yeah.
And the players
that's right.
Squirt the water in their mouth.
That's right.
Do they still do that?
I don't. They used to do that. I'll look at the water situation and see how they do it. It's a good question. They used to also have cold tubs outside that all the people would get. Remember the cold tubs?
Steve Young see those anymore. Do they not have them anymore?
I don't know. Maybe they're inside. I don't see the cold tubs anymore. Maybe.
Yeah, Steve Young sit in the cold tub, and he'd be in the cold tub, and I'd be interviewing him. It was weird.
Would you ever get in a cold tub?
Iggy with the spritzing it in the mouth, and it showed how important hydration is.
Mike McGlinchey said yesterday that he loses 10 to 15 pounds of water weight in a practice. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, absolutely. That's why it's silly, but in that sport, water is so important.
That's what he was saying. He's like, I could easily lose 15 pounds of water in a
Sure.
practice, so I really need to make sure I'm drinking a lot. Imagine having to be 320 pounds. It must be so hard to keep that up.
Yes.
So hard. Anyway, by the way, Mike McGlinchey came out and spoke yesterday, and it was the first time I was face to face with him since I really took it too far. And I asked him 5 questions just to give him the opportunity to tell me off if he wanted to. He didn't. He was really nice. He answered all my questions. He's a very professional, nice guy.
Iggy,
And all the things.
I think he's a good guy, and I think you could get on with him.
I think so too. He's a good guy. And look, the video I made of him last year, I wouldn't take that back. That was a good video. But what I've learned is you don't need to make the same point about a guy for 6 months. You can just let it go after a week. And that's what I regret. I really, the whole year, I wouldn't stop. So anyway, he didn't seem to hold it against me. Also, Armstead came out and I asked him a bunch of questions too, and he gave me thoughtful answers. So moving forward.
And you assume they know who you are, Iggy?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I would assume so. Yeah. So that was nice. Just want to say that. All right. We had a couple of questions real quick. Tony says, no one is acknowledging the political aspect of not getting vaccinated.
You know, I'm not confident of talking about politics.
Yeah. Me neither. That's why I got into this industry in the first place. Cause that's okay. Cussing, yelling, younger players not coping. Have you not heard Coach Koserick in practice? He gets the most from his players. He's constantly hugging his players. They talk about how positive and yeah, he raises his voice and he uses curse words, but he doesn't curse at players. It's a difference. He uses curse words. He doesn't curse at them. He's positive. Jeremy says, what's both of your ratings on Kyle's leadership thus far?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. What's our scale?
I don't know.
Let's do letter grades.
Sure.
B minus.
Yeah. I'll say this. For training camp so far, I'm going to give him an A. I think he's handled training camp perfectly. He needed to change something about his practice schedule to address the injuries. He has. He's going very soft on a lot of these players. He had to do something differently, and he hasn't gotten a bunch of players hurt so far. Also, the way he's handling Trey Lance has been exemplary. The decisions he's made through the first week of camp are A+. I'm going to give him an A+ so far. He needed to make some changes. He is. But he's got a lot to prove still.
Yeah, I mean, Iggy, you're making a really refined and great point. Leadership.
B- is fair. B- is fair.
But I think in his career as the Niners head coach, I think B- might even be generous. He has a losing record.
He's a losing record.
Yeah.